So my name is Stephen Sam, and I'm also co-organizer of for the Mobile Learning Lab. So our first speaker, Vikram, he has spent over 10 years managing and leading product portfolios in SaaS and IoT domain across North America, Europe, and Asia. He currently manages the IoT portfolio of solutions at Bell Canada and supporting over 11 products. Vikram will demystify the smart city and all the buzz that surrounds this topic. He will also delve into the key players that enable the smart cities, use real-life use cases to demonstrate the challenges faced in the domain, and provide an understanding of the DNA matrix. Please welcome Vikram Singh.
Good evening, thank you. I hope I'm audible. I'm usually told I'm too loud, so that should be okay. So what I'm going to try to cover in the next 10 minutes or so is to basically give you an overview of what smart city is. Now, there's no one way or the right way of dissecting this issue, but there's some good parallels that we could draw and try to make sense out of the abstract language of smart cities and what it makes to you, as a professional or as a city, how it makes sense to you as an individual or a professional. So I'm going to start with the boring stuff first. This is the most simple definition of a smart city I could ever find. Like, smart city is one which is connected, innovative, ready for the future, deploying Internet of Things technology to see more and know more. So what we're trying to see, we see a lot of buzzwords today: smart city, machine learning, AI, and so on and so forth. They're not an ends to mean by themselves. Like, we're trying to accomplish an outcome. So what smart cities is doing is, in a very basic way, it's a data-driven approach of solving problems in the city. As simple as that. It's nothing more complicated than that. And what we're trying to do with that is we're deploying smart solutions, which are smart when in terms that they're operationally valid, to improve upon the status quo. I'm just trying to use as simple as a format to discuss what exactly smart cities is all about. Now, how do you actually make a city smart? Like, I'll use an analogy, right? We all had phones, and at least I had those flip phones. And 10, 12 years ago, we had smartphones. So the first part is actually wide connectivity. It means two-way flow of information happening by the aid of a sensor or by integrating with a system which already is extracting data. So what I mean by that is, a smart city to the core is one where assets are connected, and you can remotely monitor and control your assets. Control being an important, I would say, underscore. Because you can monitor a lot of assets, but then you should be able to control them based on some business logic. We are extracting so many data, or I would say sources of data right now. How do we feed that data into an algorithm which is just not doing an if and or statement like, if this happens, do this, or send an alert, but doing more than that? We're going to talk a little bit about that. And more so, I'm going to address the buzzword in general, but smart city specifically. Why now? Why we see the last couple of years, suddenly everybody's talking about smart cities. By default, there are two big catalysts here. Number one is the enablement because of technology readiness. We're talking about hardware. We are talking about miniaturization of these small sensors, which was never the case, especially at the cost factor, which is now readily available. We're talking about not a few hundred thousands, but billions and billions of sensors all across the city. That is because of the availability of these sensors. Secondly, connectivity protocol. This is an important concept. Like, the internet we see today is primarily, and I'm trying to generalize it too much, was designed for a human-to-human or database-to-database interaction. The internet we're looking right now, or the IoT, is the internet for things. The autonomous internet, I'm not talking about Skynet, but an autonomous internet which is designed and devised specifically for things. Next up, platforms, the usual suspects: Amazon, Google, IBM, Bluemix, so on and so forth. Without these important players, won't be able to process this plethora of data that we have and draw some actionable insights. So these are some important things to remember. Looking at some key use cases that we deal, or at least I deal in my day job every day: smart building, smart parking. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Now, the second catalyst that I did not share on the previous slide is the support or involvement of the government. The government of Canada came out with some very interesting challenge. It's called the Smart City Challenge. So it's asking cities and communities that, why don't you come up with a proposal? And if you think that is the right approach for your citizens to make the life better, we will fund it. There's a lot of money on the table. We're looking at about a $50 million mega prize. It's almost like, it's like a game show, but it's true. $50 million for the participant who wins the overall Smart City Challenge. There are two prizes for $10 million for communities under 500,000, and there is actually one prize for $5 million for a community under 30,000. So actually you have money flowing in. And what are these cities asking for? So the government asked them to throw in a proposal. And these are the top technology identified by these applicants, these smart city contenders, to say these are the tools that we would like to build for our citizens. So you'll see mobile applications, pretty much standard. However, you see open data platforms, IoT, big data, all the way down to artificial intelligence. But why is this important? This is important because there's a lot of money chasing this concept and trying to help people, trying to make our cities more sustainable and efficient. So as a professional, whether you're a startup or whether you're working as a management consultant or you're a marketer, you are in user experience, or the way you are a full stack technical developer, there are a lot of opportunities out there. And it's a very level playing field. Like I work for Bell, and when you see technology, you see all these big names. But there's no one company which can deliver the full stack of solutions. So every individual has a huge opportunity to play and take part in this ecosystem. Now, this is something, I don't want to take it to a technical extent, but I just want to give you a flavor of just one way of looking. I won't say this is the best way of looking at it, but I would say this is my way of looking at the industry. What in my world is called the DNA matrices. Like the DNA makes the basic component of a human body, the DNA over here makes a smart solution. A smart solution makes a smart system, which in turn makes a smart city. So what are these three main components? The device, the network, the application. And there's a lot of innovation happening in each of these streams. So when you look at devices, so rather than boring you with any technical details, let's take a live example. Like you can deploy sensors, which can be temperature, pressure, or in general assigned to a specific variable. All these sensors are extracting data. This data needs to go to a gateway, which basically gathers this information. Now this gateway has some edge analytics, means in simpler terms, it has the ability to take decision on-prem. There and then, based on trigger, if this happens, if this threshold is met, do this. Or it's taking that data and pushing it to the cloud. It sounds simple, but how do you do that in a secure way? The next level is the network level. So once you extract this data from these sensors, it needs to be pushed to the cloud by a secure pipe, which is connectivity. We are looking at some specific technologies developed for smart cities, which is known as LTE-M. LTE-M is basically a technology we use for devices when you're looking for long battery life. At the same time, you want the devices to wake up when they need to work and sleep when they're not operating. Because all these sensors around us are embedded, and they need to have a long battery life to make the business use case more successful. The next layer is enablement. We need companies which are doing installation, managed services, and other value-added services to enable this ecosystem. And finally, the end layer, the application layer. It sounds like an app in itself, but it's a very complicated world in its own domain. In my experience, there's no single platform which can do everything. So you're looking at a platform which takes the data from the device, and it's just hosting the data and just trying to do some very basic level of computation. The second level is basically taking this across the middle layer and building a smart engine, which you can deploy artificial intelligence as well, but I am not a big fan of these buzzwords, so I'll say, for simplicity's sake, we have data across different layers, operation layer, an enablement layer, and a prime layer, wherein a single pane of glass, you have access to all the data and insights across the city. And you'll get to know more about it when I take you through a couple of examples. But what I want you to capture from this slide is, it's not just a piece of kit or technology. There are three main building blocks, and they need to be in place, bounded by this important guy, end-to-end security. Because it's so easy to just keep on building stuff and forget it's not secure and land up in a scenario that you don't want to be in. So this is an important part to understanding the core structure of smart city. I'll skip this in the interest of time. If you're interested in knowing more about how you can participate in this ecosystem, whether you're a full-stack developer, whether you're a marketer, whether you want to build a marketplace, go check out this website. This is just one of the ones which I use. Has some great infographics and you can learn, called Postscapes. You can find a lot of stuff here. I don't know if I think I have 5 minutes left or less. How are you doing for today?
We still have a few minutes left.
Okay, cool. So let's take you through some smart city solutions that are actually deployed. I'm going to talk, there are many, but I want to talk about something which most of people know and something that you may not be aware of. So when you talk about energy management of smart buildings, rather than giving you this whole feature by feature list, let's take a user story. Let's say this building. So the biggest energy draw of this building is not these lights. It's not the elevator, it's actually the HVAC. Right now the building we are in, it has probably an HVAC which has on and off, maybe a thermostat. But it's doing nothing beyond it, it's inefficient. Most of the buildings that we work in, whether it's an office space, it's a multi-dwelling unit, or a condo, or a home, or a mall, or any arena or space, they use a lot of power and they're not doing it efficiently. So what we do is, first layer of smart IoT or smart city application is we deploy a bunch of sensors or we integrate with the building management system. So now the building is aware. Even this building, by deploying some sensors in a span of 2 hours, this building can aware and become intelligent. Means it would know, okay, it has 3 floors or 5 floors. Let's say it has a quick service restaurant or food court. It knows when and how this building is being used. Maybe floor number 2 is used a lot because these guys here, they work a lot. Or the top floor is not used that much. Or there is a food court which powers itself up highly, especially during lunch hours because of just the natural workflow. But then it can also know, okay, it can go and check its system and see if tomorrow it's going to be a very cold day. So I need to fire up and heat up this building in off-peak hours and prime this building. So automatically it's doing so in off-peak hours and saving energy. It's also making sure, okay, building floor number 2 is going to be filled up with people today based on the historic occurrence of how many people are drawing in. So it's going to fire up this floor and the energy is not going to waste. It's very simple. But how we're doing it simply by integrating it. The second layer is it knows their elevators. It can detect fault in it by simply deploying a $10 vibration sensor. The algorithms today are so advanced that they can actually predict beyond 90% accuracy that this elevator could go down and could predict whether it's going to be today, tomorrow, or the next week. Span of time that a service order could be self-automated and generated, someone would be here to fix it. Now expand this problem statement across multiple buildings, a city block, and a city, and suddenly things started to make more sense. And big kicker over here that today there are companies which are doing this as a service. Meaning they'll come to you and say, okay, I'll take over your building, means I will deploy all the sensors, I'll actively manage it and do everything, and you don't have to pay me anything straight up. I will take a portion of your saving. So let's say out of $10,000 utility bill, you saved 30%, $3,000, that company is going to take away $500,000. So very first month you take $2,000 to the bank. And that's that simple. Why? Because it's so inefficient the way things are being run now. And this is one of the key examples of smart cities. And this then further draws out to smart parking, water leak detection, it's a big insurance cost outside fire, and so on and so forth. I can give you 10 more use cases within this smart building alone. And this is just a multi-dwelling part. A mall will have a different problem statement. So what I'm trying to do here is trying to think that there's so many applications that one could participate in. One more thing I like to just talk about a little bit, because I know we're running out of time, is water leak detection. This is one of those things that you probably haven't heard much about. But for a smart city, the infrastructure right now is sitting on a mesh network of pipelines. These pipes were put in the ground 60, 70, maybe more. Like, this is an old infrastructure, this water leakage. People who were living in down, working here, they realized that why is this odd construction or excavation happening in the intersection? Everything was fine. But usually the suspect is water leakage. Something we don't know, but that hugely impacts municipalities. $1 billion is lost just because water leakage in Canada because they are not properly monetized. Now add to it the cost of actually digging the stuff when it was not required. So you already have a $1 billion problem to solve only in Canada. So these are some interesting problems that we can solve. And we do this right now by just deploying this smart sensor. So you see a fire hydrant? This guy on the top has a sensor, an echo sensor. Alone, it can't do much. But when you spread across these fire hydrants, let's say in a city block, it can echolocate exactly where are the leaks and it can prioritize. Simple stuff. But then, second level of intelligence. Once the data goes in the cloud, it can triangulate, okay, we have identified 3 key leaks now. And one of them is in, let's say, downtown core. One is in next to the ground on U of T campus. So we need to automatically generate a work order for downtown core, which needs to be carried out in the middle of the night. Very simple stuff. You might save 10, 20, 30, maybe $500,000 based on the scale. But multiply, compound this problem across different use cases, and one would see how by deploying these smart pieces of kit and technology, by extracting the data layer and sharing this data, we can make the system so efficient. And I can talk about, I don't know, maybe 50 use cases. And this whole industry right now, smart city, it is very homogeneous. You have big players like Google and IBM playing their part. You have startups, especially in Canada, homebrew, which are like 2 or 3 guys startups, and they're doing amazing business because they're looking at these use cases which nobody even pay attention. Like, this is the example I wanted to share. Just water leakage alone is a $1 billion problem in Canada, and nobody looking at it outside 3 or 4 companies. I know we're short on time, so I'll skip the rest. But one thing I'd like to highlight is that smart city deployment is pretty evident. Like we talk about, these are the poster charts. Like, for example, Barcelona, 30% increase in energy savings alone, $50 million increase in parking revenue collection, and 47,000 jobs created. So these are huge numbers. So go look at smart cities as a cycle that cities are desperate for an upgrade from infrastructure and from internet. Looking at, we talk about IT, it's a time, how do you take IT and improve the OT, bring it all together, drive those intelligent decisions. And we also have some very good wins in Canada. We're looking at smaller cities like City of Kingston, Medicine Hat, and St. Catharines. There are active deployments happening. With big money chasing in, it's a very prime spot to be in. And all the cool technology you hear about, this is an ideal platform to deploy them in real life use cases. So that's what I wanted to cover, just give you a rough flavor of what's happening, what's real, and how you can make a difference in this space. Thank you very much for that. I will be sharing a different version of these slides. A couple of information I just want to keep, just remove my work slides, and I'll post it with Stephen so you can copy. Especially the resources I've shared that you can go and check out.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions before I leave?
What's the smart kiosk?
Smart kiosk. Okay, smart kiosk is that now there's only 2 ways, primarily 2 ways of interacting between the city and the citizens. It's either go and meet them in the office person, which is, some say it's okay, some say it's not great, but nobody's saying, wow, that was amazing. Or going online. There's another way we want to build. How do we build a physical interface between people? And when you look at citizens, we have to look at elderly, we have to look at kids, look at across the board. Building smart kiosks where they could dispense the right information to you as and when you need it. So for example, one at the downtown core will have a different set of information as a key go-to information, and let's say next to Union Station will say, okay, these are the buses, this is the trains, how we can help you do what we want to achieve. Secondly, it's a great way to interact with public services, 911, emergency, and there's some other challenges the city is facing that we're working on. Means we all know what happened last year, a couple of events in which something could have been done better if information was provided to, let's say, law enforcement in a more efficient manner. So we're working on that. But that's a very sensitive topic. We have to be very careful about how we're interacting with people. Its privacy laws are accepted. Thankfully, this is Canada, so we care about that stuff. But the part is, how do we build a more friendly interface between the people and at the same time giving them services which are meaningful to them? And that's one of those ways. It's called smart kiosk. It's simple. It's going to be a very prevalent thing in Canada. Right now, it's running pilots, and the reports are pretty good.
Is there anything smart deploys in Toronto?
Toronto as a city, yes. So right now there's huge deployment on the commercial side. For example, companies, enterprises, they want to deploy solutions in energy management and smart buildings because that doesn't just help them save money, but also make their employees more productive. But across the board, primarily, if you look at cities, we see development happening more so in tier 2 cities because they're more open, as opposed to Toronto, which will take a little bit more time. Right now in the city of Toronto, we see deployments primarily in the private sector, but the municipality, they're moving in phases. So probably they'll start with, let's say, fleet management for an entire TDC, how to make that efficient. And then one fine day, they'll start with something else. So that's why in the beginning I said, smart city is not a stage. There's no one threshold, suddenly you'll cross it and say, you know what, we're a smart city. No. It's an ongoing process. It will start with some of your bigger problem statements and eventually move on. And hopefully in the next 4 to 5 years you will see. There are other projects as well coming in the market. We see Google doing something, but that's, I don't know when you'll see that. But extra deployments, yes, this is something which is happening today. All enterprises are making a push towards smart solutions, building a smart environment and building a smart city.
Anything is happening on the city level, like any smart projects?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Anything happening on the city level, any smart projects that are you aware of?
So city-wide, there are many projects happening. So I can't make publicly available this information that we are working with city because that impacts my work. But I would highlight, and maybe that's a sneak peek to you, that these are the solutions which are actively, sorry, I messed something up. The city of Kingston, not far away. We have a complete pilot, means we have a suite of solutions that they're deploying. So, City of Toronto, they're working on smart city projects in multitudes of ways, but they're siloed. Like it will be smart parking solution, or it will be a smart transportation solution. And eventually these inroads will not be like, this project is only for waterworks, this project is only for TDC. Very soon you'll see it will be a direction taken by the entire city. I'm not in the city position, so I won't be able to comment that, but what I can predict, and I'm predicting, this is not something you'll see 5 years from now. This is what we'll start seeing this year, next year, or year after that.
So I have a question from a connectivity point of view, you being
Sure.
from a candidate. So there are a couple of protocols that are
Correct.
not protocols. Let's, for example, LoRaWAN and then
Yeah.
5G is also promising. Where do you see the trend going from a candidate point of view, from connectivity? Like, are carriers investing in LoRaWAN or more in 5G? I know 5G will roll out anyway, but like, is there a separate network for LoRa, or do you see that it's going nowhere? Or
I would say every protocol or every network has its own benefits, pros and cons. It depends upon exactly what the user wants. What I can suggest is that when you talk about connectivity, it's taken for given, but it has to do a few things in a very consistent way. Number one, it has to be dependable, means the bands that you're using are not scientific bands. Like I can set up my own network, which could be impacted by interferences, let's say from another private network. So it has to have that dependency that, hey, I'm using a band which is designed for a specific set or use case. The other thing is support. So what happens is that we do not know that behind the scenes, all the networks, they're very dynamic. It's not that you switch on and they operate at 90% to 95%. There's a lot of stuff going back across, behind the screens to enable and keep the whole network consistent. When you're looking at businesses and core industry depending upon that there could be, this is only the permissible latency that we could tolerate, then we really need to start investing in piece of technologies like LTE-M or NB-IoT. Having said that, other competing technologies, as I work for a carrier, they might have their own relevance in a closed sphere, but when you talk about coast to coast, Canada-wide, it has to be very, very dependent. It's just like another utility. And there are certain caveats that we have to look into it. And then finally, security and measurement. So everybody could depend on the solution. But there's room for everyone.
like, is Bell investing? 5G, I know, but is Bell coming up with a new network?
Yes, we are coming up with LTE-M.
LTE-M.
Very soon we'll have the announcements. But that is something we publicly made an announcement that we'll be coming up with soon, but I can't release it at exact date, but it's something which is happening very, very soon. Because the other thing is cost, user experience, right? I want a network which makes sense for me and for my devices. So we have to cater to those needs. Sorry, is the question, please.
Is there anything that Toronto is doing to support new startups getting on board and making the city smart?
I see two things happening. Number one, I see where the money is flowing in. I have good insight of. Like for example, I see startups doing exceedingly well who are trying to solve this problem. For example, I don't know if I can share more details, but let's say a partner that I work with, a company named SensorSuite. Now this company does an amazing job working in the solution doing smart energy, but it focuses on, one of the key focus area is retrofit. And they, in my opinion, that's my personal opinion right now, they do amazing. Why? Because there's infrastructure. There are like some multi-dwelling units which have electric baseboard heat. So they've found a problem statement. They know they're all the new building and condos that are coming, their baseline is pretty efficient. But then there are buildings which have electric baseboards. And their rent, when they're given out, they're usually $400 to $500 cheap, because for a condo, utility or the hydro bill is about $300 to $400. These are the stories that we hear. So what they did was they made a solution focused on that specific problem statement to make the system smart. So they say, we're not asking you to completely change the infrastructure of your building. By deploying this solution, you can make a lot of saving. So this tiny startup, which was, and I think it's growing to a big company now, it's only because they focused on a problem statement. So that is one example I'd use, that things very open for companies in Toronto. And also the venture money is flowing in the right way. It means if you're focusing on a problem statement, you have an ecosystem where large companies are supporting you, then it's easy to get to the next stage. And this is just one of the examples I shared. There are many more in the market. And also the whole corridor, like we talked about, the Waterloo, Toronto, I think outside Silicon Valley, Toronto is going to be the next big thing. I'm bullish about it.
Sorry, what's the name of the company?
SensorSuite.
All right.
I think I crossed my time. Thank you very much. I'll be there if you have more questions.